Good morning, everybody. Thanks so much for being here. My name is Tracy Sprower. I'm with Met How at Home. We have a series of educational programs called Get Ready that are aimed to help us to become proactive with the opportunities and the challenges of getting older and to do that to age well together. So Heidi Blackie is an occupational therapist from Seattle. We've had Heidi host a couple of Get Ready programs. They are both on our YouTube channel. One is called Stress Resilience, which has been great. I have been using one of my techniques that you taught us, Heidi, for the last year, the 4-7-8 breath to help reset the nervous system. But anyway, the other one that Heidi shared with us is the Stepping Confidently Fall Prevention Strategies. And so I'll let you finish your introduction, Heidi, but welcome everyone. Thanks so much for being here. And with that, I'll pass it over.
Thanks, Tracy. Thanks so much, everybody, for having me today. I am an occupational therapist. I've been in practice over 20 years, and most of that has been in outpatient rehab. I did partner with King County on their fall prevention program. But I started my own business about 5 years ago because a lot of the people that I worked with actually could have prevented their falls or injuries had they had the knowledge to avoid it. So I started Somersault Wellness, which is the name of my business. And I'm really aimed at prevention. And we'll get into some statistics as to, why it's so important to prevent falls. But I also do home safety, ergonomics, and movement coaching, and stress resilience training. And I love this class because a lot of people feel like, okay, I'm older, I'm aging, I'm gonna fall. And falls are not a normal part of aging. Changes in your body that happen with aging can be risk factors for falls, but just because you're a certain age doesn't mean that you're going to fall. And there's a lot of things that you can do to reduce your risk factors. And so my goals for this class are to really have you kind of identify some risk factors and to learn some things that you can do to reduce those risk factors. I'm not a PowerPoint person. I always fall asleep in PowerPoint presentations, and I like to do kind of an interactive format for my classes. And you learn from me, you learn from each other, and I learn from you. I don't know everything. And so we kind of learn together. So if you have questions along the way, or if you want to share something that you've done that's been helpful, I think we can all really benefit from that. So just to kind of get a sense, I heard somebody talking earlier about a husband who fell. Has anybody had a fall in the past year by like a raise of hands? And actually, I have fallen several times. I started roller skiing and pavement.
That would do it.
Definitely not as forgiving as snow. But anybody else? Has anybody else had any falls? Tracy, okay. All right, Sandra. Grayston, okay. And so with your falls, did you need to reach out to a doctor or get some medical investigation on any of those? Good. Excellent. Okay. So one thing that can happen, even though, you don't have injuries that warrant going and seeking medical attention, is a fear of falling. And that's really common. And we'll talk a little bit about that later as in terms of that being a risk factor. But what I want to do now is you all got a couple handouts, and I want you to pull out the self-assessment. It looks like this. It's kind of a graph. And I want to just have everybody, does everybody have that at your disposal? No?
I sent it in an email, but maybe if you didn't have it, maybe you could just read it,
I'm
Heidi.
going to read it. So it's just 10 questions, yes or no answers. And this is a validated kind of checklist questionnaire by the CDC that if you have a score of 4 or more, you could be at risk for falls. So the first one is, I have fallen in the past year. So yes or no. And you could just do like a Y or an N. And the second one is, I use or have been advised to use a cane or walker to get around safely. And for anybody who answered yes to either of those questions, put the number 2 by that. Third question, sometimes I feel unsteady when I'm walking, and I steady myself holding on to furniture when I walk around the house. And the rest of the yeses are 1, so you can put a 1 next to it if you're a yes. The next question is, I'm worried about falling. Yes or no, and that would be a 1 for the yes. Next question, I need to push with my hands to stand up from a chair.
Oh, yeah.
I have some trouble stepping up onto a curb is the next question.
Do you? Not if you know it's not there.
I often have to rush to the toilet.
No.
I have lost some feeling in my feet. I take medicine that sometimes makes me feel lightheaded or more tired than usual. I take medicine to help me sleep or improve my mood. And then the last one is, I often feel sad or depressed. So the first 2 questions, yes, would be 2 points, and the rest, yes, is 1. So for all your yeses, count your tally your numbers. And if the total is 4 or greater, then you may be at risk for falls. And I encourage you to look at this form, because the nice thing about it is for every question, it has a little explanation of why that matters. So is anybody surprised at your score? Oh, quickly repeating the questions. Okay, here we go, Sandra. I have fallen in the past year. I use or have been advised to use a cane or a walker to get around safely. Sometimes I feel unsteady. This is number 3, unsteady when I'm walking. And I steady myself by holding on to furniture when walking at home. Number 4 is, I'm worried about falling. Number 5, I need to push with my hands to stand up from a chair. Number 6, I have some trouble stepping up onto a curb. Number 8, I often have to rush to the toilet. I think that's number 7. The next one is, I've lost some feeling in my feet. Next question, I take medication that sometimes makes me feel lightheaded or more tired than usual. Take medicine to help me sleep or improve my mood. And then the last question is, I often feel sad or depressed. Did everybody get those? And then the first two questions are 2, the rest are 1, and you add them up and then see what your score is. And if you're a 4 or higher, then you could be at risk for a fall. So, is it a surprise to see what your score is? Either way, could be, hey, I scored really well, or, oh, I didn't realize that I had all these risk factors.
And right now, a lot of you are muted, so you can always unmute yourself if you want to share in response to Heidi's question.
Okay, I'm gonna keep going here. If you have questions along the way, definitely, raise your hand. But I want to share a few statistics. And according to CDC in King County, 1 in 3 adults over 65 falls every year, and they're the leading cause of injury for older adults. And according to Seattle Public Health, this is a few years ago, falls accounted for 72% of all injury hospitalizations for people over 60. 22% were able to return home. This is huge. Falls are the leading cause of loss of independence for aging adults. So they can be really serious, which is why it's so important to prevent them as best you can. I mean, sometimes things happen, but there are ways that we can kind of take an active role in reducing the things that we can control. Many people who fall, even if they're not injured, become afraid of falling, which has its own kind of sequela as well. So, so it's a big deal. And the cost of falls, I could probably throw out some big billion-dollar cost, but in my opinion, the cost is the greatest to your quality of life, to your relationships, to your independence, to being able to get out and be in the community and really thrive. So, so they have a tremendous cost in that sense. So today, the format is I'm going to talk about modifiable risk factors that can lead to falls, and not all factors apply to everyone. So for those of you who've had a fall, make a little note of things that may have contributed to your fall. And then we'll talk about ways to reduce some of those risk factors. If you haven't had a fall, kind of be thinking about, oh, that might apply to me, that might apply to me, so that you've got kind of an idea for a plan after the end of this talk. And one thing too is it's usually not just one thing that contributes to a fall. Oftentimes it's kind of the interaction of several risk factors that results in a fall. So if you can kind of reduce as many as possible, that's going to be the best. So I kind of group them in buckets. So there's physical, and these are physical changes in your body that could lead to falls. There's behavioral, which are things that you do or you don't do that could lead to falls. And then there's the environment. And 60% of falls happen in the home, and an additional 20 to 23% happen around the home. So the home is a really good place to kind of start. And there are lots of things that you can do to reduce the risk factors within your home. But I'll start with physical. Weakness, decreased balance, decreased mobility, flexibility, coordination. These are, as as we age, unless we really make an effort to stay active and stay strong, we lose muscle. And with that, we also lose kind of those neural muscular pathways that have been so honed for the activities that we do. And so that can cause coordination difficulties. The weakness and less movement can also create balance issues. If you've had injuries in the past and you don't have as much mobility, so you're walking with or moving with in a shorter range of motion, or you have a change in your gait because of an injury or pain, these things can affect the likelihood of having a fall. So activity is a big one. Medications. So as we get older, a lot of times you're on more medications. And generally 3 or more is kind of what's considered a little bit higher fall risk. That being said, in the questionnaire, anything that helps you sleep, some mood stabilizers, pain medications, those can just be 1 and can increase your risk of falls. So that's something that you want to kind of keep an eye on and make sure you have those conversations with your doctor. And we'll get into that a little bit later. Impaired vision. We rely so much on our vision for our balance and kind of knowing where we are in space. We use our vision to judge distance and obstacles. And as vision changes, it can be harder to do that. Multifocal glasses, I have progressives. And when you are looking kind of down in front of you through the lower part of the lenses, it can distort and blur what's immediately in front of me or at my feet. And that can create a risk, especially with like the Seattle sidewalks that are all over the place. Contrast sensitivity, glare sensitivity, visual field size. So all of those things that can change as we age, can also create risk factors. Fear of falling. So I mentioned this earlier. What can happen when you have a fear of falls is that you're not as confident when you go out. Maybe you go fewer places, or you're selective about the places that you go because you're afraid of falling. So that's going to kind of shrink your world a little bit, which can lead to isolation. And we all kind of saw the big isolation experiment with the pandemic and how that can really create anxiety and depression and some mood kinds of changes. And so fear of falling, again, if you're not active and you're not getting out as much, then you're going to get weaker. And then you're going to have the sequela of, you know, some coordination and some balance problems. So fear of falling can really snowball into something that's bigger. Fatigue. Fatigue reduces our reaction time. It reduces your awareness of your surroundings. It can decrease your cognitive function. Definitely when you're fatigued, you're not going to be picking your feet up as high or as well. It's going to result in potential gait imbalances. So that's something to really think about that's kind of fixable. Cognition. So people with dementia fall 2 to 3 times more than people who have no cognitive impairment. And it can create some gait variability, decreases your kind of thinking and decision-making part of your brain. And then medical conditions, especially multiple medical conditions. And this can be long-term or it can be acute. So it could be a urinary tract infection, and that can cause confusion and a lot of cognitive and physical symptoms. Things like diabetes or a stroke or heart disease, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Some of these big ones can really affect your safety. Low blood pressure, that's a big one. And my mom was on a bunch of, two or three low blood pressure medications, and she was having a lot of dizziness and lightheadedness, especially when she was changing elevation. And so we really took a look at her medications and got her off one of them and the other one adjusted, because she just was really having a lot of difficulty with that. Pain is another one. We guard when we have pain. It's just the body's natural response, but it can cause us to walk in a little bit different way. So, and then pain medications can also cause some problems in terms of their own risk. So any questions about physical factors?
And you're gonna sort of get into ways to mitigate those
That's where we're going to
factors.
spend the most time. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, great.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll keep going. So behavioral problems, that's things that you do or you don't do that can lead to a fall. So moving really nervously, which can happen if you're afraid.
Overconfident.
When we move nervously, we can kind of be less aware of our environment. The alternative is overconfident. So moving without thinking and or impulsively. And this can create some issues too. I have an 88-year-old client, and we're working a lot on sit to stand from his chair, and he nailed it. Like, he can do it without using his hands, and he was showing me, and he was like getting up and down really fast, and I was like, whoa, let's not be overconfident, think about what you're doing, slow down. So that's something that you want to kind of be aware of. Confidence is really important, but kind of still be aware of what you're doing. Hurrying too. Many of the people that I treated had falls because of impulsivity and hurrying. A lot of them were hurrying to the bathroom. They were running to answer the phone, and just didn't pay attention and were not aware and fell. The other thing is changing positions quickly. So what I was saying about blood pressure, that can sometimes cause a little bit of dizziness or lightheadedness. A couple years ago, my husband was lighting the coals for outside on our grill, and he blew on them to try and get the flame to light. And he stood up really fast, and he passed out face first into one of our big planters with like a super thick concrete, or not concrete, but ceramic, right on his face, like bleeding crazy. And it was like, don't stand up so fast or hold on to a tree or something. Distraction and multitasking. So, distraction is actually one of the #1 reasons why people fall. And this is across all age groups. It's not just older people. My dad, who's 87, had a fall off a curb, and he was looking at something else, thinking of something entirely else, didn't see the curb, and just fell right into the street. So distraction is a big one that's very changeable and modifiable. And then alcohol, it decreases our reaction time, decreases balance, coordination. It can make you sleepy, and it can interact with medications. So that's one to be aware of. So any questions on those? And I can't see everybody, Tracy, with my gallery view. I should put it on gallery view. So that I can see if anybody has hands. For some reason, it's not wanting to do a gallery. Okay.
Yeah, hopefully folks will either unmute or, put anything into the chat if you have any thoughts or questions coming up.
So
I think
environment.
almost more than being overconfident is sometimes people, they don't want to ask for help. So they'll be doing something and they feel like they can do it, but the ability probably isn't there and they should be asking for help if they don't.
Thank you. That is so true, and especially not wanting to bother somebody or, feeling like, well, I could do it. It may be hard, but that's I'm going to add that. Thank you. That's a good one.
And I think that's partly to denial of limitations. Like I've always been able to do it this way. So they think they can still do it.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I think, if you're at the grocery store and you're using a walking aid and somebody offers to carry out your groceries, let them, take help or ask, if you need help with it, or bring your car around to the door so that you don't have to walk as far, especially if there's snow on the ground.
Yeah.
And it's really putting, the focus and the priority on you and your safety and health, because that's most important. And so when you get in that mindset of, this is the priority and I want to keep doing this, so I'm going to ask for help in the places that I need to stay safe. So that's a good one. So environment. In the home, I heard somebody talking about throw rugs and getting rid of those, and that's a great step. There's also, if you don't have ones that curl up easily or are really thin, they make like sticky corners that you can put under the corners of your rugs. And or I'll get to it in a second, but rugs are a big one in terms of catching and falling, especially if you're using a walker or a cane in your house. Clutter is another one. And mainly in areas that are pathways and walkways. Stairs, making sure you're not putting things on the side of stairs. I tend to do that, and instead of like carrying it up or down. And if you are going to be moving up or down the stairs with a laundry basket or something like that, absolutely make sure the stairs are clear. Also, if you have any carpet that might be torn or ripped, that can be a big risk factor on stairways or in the house. Cords, again, anything that might be going across a walkway is really important to kind of be aware of. Lighting, big one, especially given all the vision potential for falls, vision difficulties. Wet surfaces, so in the kitchen, in the bathroom, any spills can be really slippery. Pets, my dog is always at my side. I'm practically tripping over her, and she's 40 pounds. She's not tiny, but she also carries socks and shoes and toys all over the house. And so those are a big risk factor, especially in the middle of the night. Stepping on like a sharp bone doesn't feel very good. So being aware of kind of cleaning up after your pets or their toys. In the community, being aware of wet surfaces and icy surfaces, uneven. So metal, more in Seattle because we have a ton of construction going on. We have those big metal plates they put on the road to cover, when they've torn up the street. But those and manhole covers, metal that's not like brushed metal, is really slippery, and so is paint. So if you're walking and you can avoid, any areas of paint or metal, do it, because it is a lot more slippery. Winter now, it's ice, and black ice that you might not be aware of. With you guys, you get a lot of sun, and so contrast. So you're in the sun and then you go into deep shade. It might take your eyes a few seconds to adjust. Same with being in deep shade and going to bright sun. So contrast can be a big one. Curbs, and then you guys have the boardwalk in Winthrop too. That's a step up onto that. And then low light, it's getting dark at 4:30 now. So that's a big consideration. And distractions. And there's distractions in the home as well. So, did anybody see any risk factors that jumped out at them? And you can just do a raise of hands, that you thought, oh, this could apply to me and I didn't really think about it. Anybody?
I think around here in the winter, it's just, places where it becomes slippery. And a lot of stuff, we walk around the road that goes around our house almost daily. And in the winter, even though there's been gravel put on the road, a lot of times when the sun comes out during the day, there's places that melt where on the sides of the road, the stuff, there's water that comes down. And by 4:30, temperature starts dropping. So a lot of those areas that may have been okay during the day start freezing. And sometimes you don't even realize that they've frozen already. And so that's a big thing around our house. Plus we have stairs that go in and out of the house and up onto 2 decks. So we're constantly putting, if it's freezing, putting rock salt, because a lot of times there's water, snow might melt during the day, even though we've swept it off. It starts freezing at night. So we have to be really careful when we're going in and out of the house.
Yeah. Do you have the ability to go on your walk during the day when it's melted, when it's a little bit warm?
That's usually what we try and do. But it's a gradual hill going down and coming up. So a lot of times it's just better to walk in the middle of the road or, wherever they've laid gravel down.
Yeah.
But you just don't realize sometimes how much water runs off the road and is running along the sides. Yeah. And that's where you tend to walk.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And hopefully it's not a really busy place that, you're having to deal with a lot of cars during the day.
Nope, not many cars.
That's good. Yeah, because that could make it hard to do during the middle of the day.
And the other problem that my husband has is he's pretty mobile, but flat surfaces are way better. If there's a lot of uneven ground or uneven surfaces, then that becomes very tiring, and then you aren't really paying as much attention because you're getting fatigued. The boardwalks in downtown Winthrop aren't real good for walking around with a walking stick.
No.
They're very uneven. They go all over the place.
Are any of the pathways, snow removed that are down in town on the flat? Or they make their ski trails, I think.
Most of the stuff that are ski trails and stuff is groomed, but for skiing, and I don't think a lot of like what would be the bike path and stuff is really plowed or not that I'm aware of. I don't think it's cared for like, you would a normal city sidewalk or something.
Yeah, that's hard because getting active, that's a really important thing, is to stay active. And for your mood as well. So strength and balance and coordination and flexibility and energy, and staying active in the community and really kind of getting out there. It's also important to challenge your nervous system. We tend to kind of move in a single plane, kind of that forward, back, this plane here. And it's really important to move in different planes. So stepping sideways, going backwards, as long as you're holding on to something if you're unsteady. And that could be, walking with a person who's walking, forward and you're walking backward. But trying to challenge our nervous system really keeps those connections strong. And it's also protective, because a lot of times we don't just fall right in this plane, we fall out to the side. And so if those muscles and deep stabilizers are kind of awake, that can help with catching yourself or slowing your fall. And you guys have a lot of activities, right, Tracy, that people can participate in terms of like in the community or on Zoom for strengthening and staying active?
Yeah, unfortunately, we do have these ongoing sale classes, which are great. That being said, they fill up so fast, and we're hoping to have another sale class coming up, and then we also sometimes host like swing dance lessons and things like that.
Perfect.
But yeah, there's always more in that way. That's probably why dance is associated with longevity. They are finding like
Yeah.
how powerful dance is as an exercise form for your whole life.
Yeah, and it's physical, it's mental, and it's emotional. I mean, it's very holistic kind of exercise, which is phenomenal. There's a lot of resources, since the pandemic, there are a lot of resources online, like Zumba, there's chair exercises. There are, make sure if you're new to something that you're kind of doing a program that is for people who are new, and you're not pushing yourself to the point of instability or getting an injury. And then kind of progress. So wherever you are, whether you're new or you've been doing movement for years, kind of try to challenge yourself in ways that are going to challenge you, but not in an unsafe way. And that also helps build your confidence. So medications, get your medications filled at the same pharmacy if you can, because your pharmacist will know kind of everything you're on, and you can ask about drug interactions, supplements, side effects, anything like that. If you have been traveling and let's say you go to an urgent care and you get on a medication, even though we have electronic documentation systems, it doesn't mean that you are, your doctor is getting the information. So use your yearly Medicare checkup with your doctor to kind of review your medications. And there may be some that you don't need anymore, or you need the dosage changed. So that's a big one that, really partner with your doctor and advocate for yourself. If you feel like this is causing side effects that are really impacting my function or my quality of life, ask your doctor if there's another alternative, or if there's a way you can kind of dial back the dosage. Vision. So I spent some time on this. Yearly checkups. And if you have things like diabetes or macular degeneration or glaucoma, get more frequent, or you have sudden changes in your vision, get more frequent visits to follow up on that. It's funny, my dad was having double vision in one eye and went to the doctor, and he had a growth and thought it was changing the surface of his eye, and that was causing it. And she said, no, and actually we can get it fixed with a prism. And so he went to the eyeglass guy, and it ended up being a $30 film that just went on one side of his glasses, and it completely corrected his double vision. So it was, you know, really easy. And he'd been, you know, I was thinking, oh my God, should he be driving, you know, but a really good outcome. And then different glasses for the task you're doing. So I talked about, you know, the progressives that have, for me, it's distance, it's computer, and then it's reading. But if you're going for a walk and you have distance issues, wear glasses for that task. And then maybe you take your readers and in a bag or in your pocket or something, so that if you go somewhere and you need them, you've got them. You can also magnify things with your phone as well. So different glasses for the task or the activity. Fear of falling. So this one is a big one. And it's really important to address your nervous system and the reasons why you're afraid of falling. And there are ways to address your nervous system with breathing techniques. Tracy mentioned one. There's tapping, and in your handout, you have a couple resources. Tapping is a great one. It's called Emotional Freedom Technique, and it's great for calming the nervous system. And it can be for good stress or overwhelming stress. Tara Brock, who is an amazing human being, she has a ton of meditations, including rain practice, which is really helpful for some challenging situations or emotions that you might be feeling. Those would be really good to do before you go out for a walk, as well as maybe some visualization of you really being successful out walking and strong and striding. And then it's really important to acknowledge the steps that you're taking to reduce your falls and, you know, help boost your confidence. And then when you go out, really stay present and breathe when you're moving. You know, we need oxygen and blood. So, you know, picking up your feet and staying present, and, you know, maybe you set yourself up for success and you go on shorter walks in level areas, and then progress from there and use that confidence that you've been out and about and you haven't fallen, to kind of keep you engaged and moving forward. I had a person in one of my classes who, she was with a friend, and the friend fell and was very badly injured, and they took her away in an ambulance, and the person in my class, even though she didn't fall, it was very traumatic and created a fear of falling for her. And so that was a lot of, you know, calming her nervous system and just breathing and really leaning into all the things that she does to reduce her risk, to increase her confidence. Depression, anxiety, and social isolation. These are really important to see a doctor about if your function and your quality of life is impacted. It's also important to connect with people, and you guys have such an extraordinary community, and there's a lot of support, and so supporting each other and volunteering really gives you a sense of purpose, which can help a lot with anxiety or depression and isolation. Setting a time and a date to get out, or even a phone call with somebody, just to kind of have that connection, so we're not isolated in your homes. Fatigue. Pace yourself. Look at, okay, what do I need to do today? And prioritize. What are the really important things? And most of us have times of the day where we have more energy. And so that's a good thing to know about yourself, and also to maybe do your exercise at that time of the day, or do appointments or things that require a little bit more concentration. So you know, kind of setting yourself up for success there. And then when you feel tired, allow yourself to take a nap or relax. And actually naps are really healthy to do when you're feeling tired, and you can wake up feeling really recharged. Another thing is your diet. That has a huge impact on fatigue and how you feel and your energy. It also has a lot to do with depression, or can have a lot to do with depression and anxiety. So really limiting sugar. If you have anxiety, caffeine is something you might want to really reduce or limit or omit, because that can increase anxiety. Fluids, making sure you're really well hydrated. Even just as little as 2% of dehydration can cause significant kind of cognitive and physical, like, performance issues. So making sure you're drinking enough. And in older people, you often don't feel thirsty until you're dehydrated. And so even if you're not thirsty, having something that you're sipping on, you know, throughout the day is important. And what I've had, like, my mom do is, you know, fill a water bottle with water, and you can pour out from that or make tea from it. But so you can kind of track how much you're drinking. And you want to shoot for kind of half your body weight in ounces. So if you're 100 pounds, you would drink like 50 ounces in a day. If you're doing a lot of exercise, then it's going to be more than that. And especially where you guys are, it's so dry, you lose a lot through your breath. And so really making sure that you're getting adequate hydration is important. For cognition, try to reduce any multitasking, which actually is better known as task switching, because you're not focused on, you know, anything if you have a bunch of things that you're trying to focus on. So being mindful, being present, exercise, anything that's good for your body is good for your brain. Our brains are 2% of our body mass, and they require 20% of our resources. So that's 20% of our energy, 20% of our oxygen, 20% of our hydration. So there's a lot you can do also with diet that will help cognition. And limiting sugar. Sugar is a big one with cognition. And then if you notice significant changes in your cognition, really making sure you're seeing your doctor to make sure there isn't anything else going on. Low blood pressure. If you have consistent dizziness, check your blood pressure. Herbal teas, Sue says, can be a diuretic. Yeah, so make sure that, and I know like licorice tea, which I love, that's a diuretic, but make sure that your hydration is not diuretics. So that's not caffeine. Some of the herbal teas, alcohol is a diuretic. So those you can have kind of in addition. So low blood pressure, again, hydration, change your elevation slowly. And if you've been sitting down for a while, move your feet, move your legs, do some kicks, move your body, get some blood flowing before you move, and stand up. So that's a really good kind of check-in, even just like 30 seconds to a minute of moving. And then shoes, you know, in the winter, you could carry a little bag of rock salt or kitty litter or sand and sprinkle it in front of you. Also those, you know, yak tracks, if it is icy, and there's different ones you can get, like the super spikes or like a coil. Also, if you use a cane, you can get like an ice tip, a cane tip for ice. You can also, I would recommend replacing the rubber tips at the beginning of winter. if you're not opting for a cane tip for ice. So any questions on those? I know we're getting close to ending time, but I have a few more, but I want to make sure there aren't any questions.
There's a great question from Sue here. How do you draw the line between challenging our nervous system and taking a risk, maybe an unnecessary risk, or yeah, where is it the healthy zone versus?
Yeah, I think, it depends on how you're doing, what you're doing, where you are. And challenging can be like bouncing a balloon up and doing math, like with every touch. Challenging the nervous system doesn't have to be a big movement. I would start small. I would do, if you are, it depends on if you have if you're using a device for ambulation, it's going to be different if you're not. But I have my client I hold his hands, or he's in front of the counter and he steps, side to side and does a lot of weight shifting and lifting. And he can grab the counter if he loses balance, or me. So I think if you can set up your environment so that it's going to catch you if you start to fall. There's a lot of different things you can do for balance, but again, I would be holding, next to something where you can catch yourself. And then when you're pretty good at that, then you can kind of progress it. Out in the community, if you want to challenge your nervous system, do it when you have a lot of energy. Do it when you're with somebody. So maybe you're doing a little bit of uneven terrain. Be really, intentional about each step. Focus and breathe and relax. And don't feel like you have to keep climbing. You can stay, at a level and then get, okay, I feel really good today. I'm going to try and advance what I'm doing. Does that answer your question? I feel like my camera is blurry here. Does that answer? So it's challenging, but not setting you up for an injury or a fall. Okay, thanks. So behavioral things, impulsivity. So if you have to go to the bathroom frequently, get on a schedule and go every hour, every 45 minutes. And this is so common. I see this all the time, especially in women who don't want to drink because they have to go to the bathroom frequently. And so make sure that you are drinking and then go on a schedule so that your bladder isn't full and you've got to run to the bathroom. Give yourself time to get to appointments. And you can kind of be calm, and even getting there early, you can do some breathing. Dehydration, again, I kind of talked about this earlier. Moving nervously and overanalyzing. So again, that's another one where you can set yourself up for success, like on easier terrain, short distances. Bring a buddy, wear supportive shoes, or and those yak tracks. Alcohol, example of moving nervously. Someone who is just really focused on, looking down and kind of really slow. And I've seen this out in the community. And when you have snow on the ground, I want you to move slowly, shorter steps, wider base of support, and looking where you're going. But when you're moving and as a habit with kind of really focusing down, you're not kind of seeing the whole, you know, landscape and you know, distractions and things around you. So does
That's
that,
also a balance issue, though, you know, as older people tend to have hang their head down, or their shoulders are forward. So all the weight of their head, you know, is down in front of them. And that's a balance issue, which, you know, helps kind of keep people off kilter.
right? I actually told my client, because he used to lean forward, and I said, you're going to lean into a fall because your head weighs 10 to 12 pounds when it's right over your shoulders. But if it's in front of you, you've got this big, heavy bowling
Yeah.
ball out here, and that's going to cause you to be off balance and pull you down into a fall. So, so keeping your ears over your shoulders and looking down, but not, you know, kind of like, you know, if you're thinking about falling, you're gonna probably fall. Whereas if you're thinking about, I got this, I'm strong, I'm healthy, I'm looking where your body follows your eyes. And if your eyes are always down here, you might end up there more than if you're just looking ahead. And when you're looking ahead, you can kind of take in, you know, everything that is in front of you as well. Anything else on that?
I want to say one thing about the yak tracks and spikes and whatever. We have
Yeah.
several neighbors that do use, you know, spikes to walk along the road here. If there's a lot of snow, like last year was a good example, because you couldn't see the pavement.
Yeah.
But we also had a few years back a friend that lived in the neighborhood that got in the habit of walking up and down the hill. And she had, I don't know what the brand was, but they had the little coils.
Yeah.
And if you hit ice and you have those little coils, you are probably going to go down. And this gal was in her 50s at the time, and she slipped and fell wearing those and ended up with a broken arm. And she had said that, you know, walking on snow, if there was no ice, it was fine. But she happened to hit an icy spot, and those things were just like ice skates.
Yeah.
So I think in this area, maybe the little spikes are maybe a little bit better, and they're easy to slip on your shoes or boots for walking.
Yeah, I agree. And the coils, I've had them break off really easily. And we had the ice storm here in Seattle a year ago, Christmas break, and I have like this long ice spikes, and I was walking all around the neighborhood, and I mean, you couldn't walk anywhere without falling if you didn't have those on. Yeah.
So I think also, you know, if you don't use a walker or a cane, you know, walking sticks are really good. And the walking sticks where you have one in each hand are really good for kind of balance. And you know, we have a single walking stick, and we have you know, almost like trekking poles, and they're really good because they're in both of your hands. So if you're feeling a little unbalanced, you can lean one way or the other, but you know, at least you feel like you have something to lean on if you're walking, you know, down a road or on uneven ground.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, that's true. The only thing is, if you want, you know, make sure that if you protect your head, if you do start to go down, and sometimes if you've got things in your hands, you're less likely to put your hands out.
Right.
But for balance, definitely. And then if you have those ice tips, that can be really helpful too.
Right.
Thank you. Yeah, those are great ideas. Anything else?
So it's Al. I'm married to Kathleen. I just on mental issues, and that occur to me on an occasional basis. I even talked with a doctor about it a little bit. That I'm 84 years old and pretty stable and active, but I really can't do a lot of the things that I thought I'd be doing when I retire. I like to fish, and so getting in and out of the boat's a real problem. I can't back a trailer anymore. Um, I like to ride a bike, and we've got mountain bikes here, and they've discouraged me from doing that. Cross-country skiing also, because they're more susceptible to a fall. So mentally, and I've waited all this time to do the things I really like to do, and either they're difficult or I'm not doing them, simply not doing them anymore. So it's affected me mentally some, and really, do I want to go on uh, if I can't really do the things that I enjoy doing?
Yeah, thank you. That's I'm really sorry to hear that. And I wonder if there are some things that, if you went cross-country skiing just on flat, you've got poles there. If you've been doing it your whole life, is that something that you could do? I think
And they discouraged him from doing that mostly because of balance issues. I'm not sure if there was a lot more snow, if he fell and the snow is relatively soft, but I think they're more worried about people falling and like breaking a hip or something. One of the things we've tried to do, and it's a little hard because a lot of people that we know have all aged as well. So everybody used to be lake fishermen and steelhead fishermen and walk down the Methow, and they had, you know, um, wading boots, and some had felt soles and other forms of traction, but it's very difficult, as they get older. So sometimes I think one of the answers is reaching out to people that still do that or that are younger and see if they're willing to, take them fishing. And we've had some success with that. But it's hard because other people don't always want to take the responsibility of getting somebody in and out of a boat, and they're always like, what if they fall or whatever, and they aren't as maybe as adept or creative on getting people in and out of boats. And basically if they've got a life jacket on and they don't fall on the rocks or something, it's it should be okay. But I think those are challenges for a lot of people in the valley that came here and that were able to do a lot of things. And as you age, you can't do them. I mean,
yeah.
I'm not that elderly. I just turned 71, but there's things that I used to be able to do that I was a lot better at too. And it's like, well, I'm not going to give up cross-country skiing, Maybe skate skiing is not always a good idea if the conditions aren't great, but you have to kind of be creative to find either other things to do or ways to compensate and do what you used to do. It's not always easy. This can be kind of a harsh environment for, finding ways to do things.
Yeah, I mean, and I would definitely, try and replace as much as possible and find ways. And I don't know the medical history, but I know for me, being active is part of being alive for me. And if I can't be active doing the things that I want to do, then I need to weigh the risk with the way it impacts my life.
Mm-hmm.
And is there a way I can, and doctors, I don't want to overstep, but they're more conservative. And
Right.
And I think that's where it becomes, kind of an individual decision. And if it's something because if you're depressed, that's a risk too. And if you're not moving, that's a risk too. So it's all weighing it out, and movement and being in nature and doing those things that this is your golden years to be able to do all those things. So I think it's twofold. I think it's really acknowledging and maybe getting therapy or something around the loss and grief that you have for it not turning out the way that you wanted, and so much more than that, you know, your quality of life. And I think that's a really important thing to address. And then I think it's, okay, so maybe I'm not riding a bike because that's faster and that's moving along, and that's a, you know, a heavy thing that can throw you, and balance wise. But could you snowshoe? Could you go skiing, you know, on the flat when you feel good? And just try it for 10 minutes, you know, something short. Go like at the, you know, where the skating rink is, and go across the street. I think that's a really flat place toward the Meadow Trails. But I think, you know, take that advice from the doctor, but it's also realize there are also risk factors to being depressed and being isolated and not moving as well. So I don't know if that answers your question. That would be really, that sounds really.
I think it's hard. I think it's just, you have to find other ways to either compensate and still be able to do some things, and just maybe find a safer way of doing something.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I think too, like in your, yeah, Tracy.
Excuse me. We are also going to be having a program with Sharon Cohen. She is a mindfulness teacher, and there's been a lot of research about self-compassion, because it's really easy, I think, to get frustrated with our own self when we lose these capabilities. And so she's going to be doing a program about, yeah, self-compassion for well-being, and just helping us to recognize, you know, the way that we talk to ourselves, that it can affect our sense of well-being. But it's hard. Like, yeah, these are the hard things in life when we get, you know, something that happens to us that limits us or takes something away from our life. And like you're saying, Heidi, having somehow support to like deal with that loss, as well as, you know, like you're saying, what can you replace things with, or draw from the strengths of what still remains.
And gratitude is another thing. There's a lot of research around gratitude, and even having a practice where every day, you know, you write down 3 things, and it doesn't sound, you know, like much, or it sounds like, oh yeah, right. But it actually, there's a tremendous amount of research that shows that there is a positive benefit from it, and it helps reframe things. It's not gonna, you know, completely change the way you feel, but it's just kind of taking these small steps that collectively might put you in a little different place. So yeah, I mean, I've dealt with a lot of loss myself, and it's been challenging, and a lot of learning, and having a hard time seeing the light through the dark. But there is light, and hopefully, you know, you can see that and get out in ways that are really meaningful for you. So yeah. So we kind of
Also,
oh
yeah.
yeah. Sorry.
Well, one thing I just want to acknowledge that it's almost 11:15, and so we're but I appreciate this conversation, everybody, and feel free. Let me just establish one thing. Did people receive my email with the handouts from Heidi?
Yes.
Did that make it? Okay, good. And so that will be there's Coco. Hi, Coco. That will be a helpful thing to have on hand. Heidi, that was a great handout with a lot of great information.
Mhm.
And we're also going to be doing an 8-week course with Jan Kittleson and myself that has to do with really addressing that fear of falling. So, and as well as giving some simple exercises and things like that. That's
Mm.
filled up, but we'll be offering
Good.
it again as well.
Yeah.
When do you think you'll be offering that again? Because I went out and I saw that that was completely booked. I'm like, wow, there's a waiting list even for it.
I know. Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure. Probably in the spring, some
Okay,
point. So
all right.
So one quick thing, we've kind of already covered most of the things that were left, but a place to start is just to identify 2 or 3 things that that I talked about today, or we talked about today, and then 2 or 3 risk factors, and then kind of problem solve some ways to reduce those. And then, you know, once you've done that, check off a couple others and then address those. On your handouts, you have a home safety checklist link to CDC site. I encourage you to check that out, walk around your house, and reduce any of the low-hanging fruit things that are easy there. Amazon has really inexpensive lights that you can attach anywhere that are battery operated to illuminate any dark areas. I have people put them kind of along their path to the bathroom. So there are ones that are movement. They turn on with movement. So, so there are some resources. And then the tapping and tarabrock.com are also there. And I would recommend the Tara Brach rain practice and even the tapping for any loss, for any fear, for any emotions around difficult things. They've been really transformative for me, and I can't say enough. And they're free resources, so there's no fees or charges. So yeah. So thank you so much for your attention and for sharing. It's so much, I like having discussions. It's like a conversation versus like me just talking at you. So thank
yeah,
you.
thanks so much, Heidi, and thanks you guys for being here today. And we'll just keep getting these resources out. Feel free to reach out to me. I think you all have my email. Let me know if there's anything else that would be helpful for you in this realm, because we're really, really dedicated to wanting to be proactive and setting folks up for success.
And I also have my email address on the bottom of the handouts. So if you have questions, I'm happy to answer as well. And there's a lot of adaptive equipment out there as well to kind of make things easier for you. That's the other thing is, you know, if you have a finite account of energy, don't spend it on things at home that aren't fun. Like go out and do something that really brings you joy, and then maybe do little bits of other household things at other times. So things that can make life easier in your home is a great way to conserve energy that you can spend elsewhere. So yeah.
Great.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Well,
Okay.
have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great
Welcome.
session.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much, everybody. Good to see you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. See you, Kat.